Welcome to the Yoked Podcast, where we talk about all things entrepreneurship, real estate, and partnerships. I'm your host, Travis Hall, alongside my co-host and wife, Ingrid. Together, we've been in real estate for nearly 2 decades, always as an equally yoked husband and wife team.
Join us each week as we bring you a new episode. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, follow along, and welcome to this week's episode of
The Yoked Podcast.
All right.
You're going to give us a clippity clap?
Yep.
What's up, and welcome to this week's episode of The Yoked Podcast. I'm Travis Hall, alongside my wife, Ingrid.
Hi.
What's up, babe?
What's up?
I like your style today.
You know,
You're all podcast up, ready to go with your little duck boots on.
I can get places in these duck boots.
It's true.
I have long had a history of duck boots.
What did you call them, though?
They were, what were they? Clobble boots or something.
Clutter boots.
Clutter boots.
Clobble boots.
I set
Clutter
records in my clutter boots,
I've heard that
so
story
don't hate it. I also still have them. Mom kept them for me.
That's right. We have them at our house. Well, welcome. We're excited for this episode. Today, we're going to be talking about a little more deep dive into faith and work and entrepreneurship, and especially doing it together. And we're going to be talking about how to balance faith, family, and business.
Yeah.
At least, broad stroke, how we do it.
Yep. And it's honestly one of the questions we get asked quite often, which is, how do you do it all? Like, what does your day actually look like? What does doing entrepreneurship, business, as well as, friendships?
Yeah.
We share a lot of friendships, marriage, parenting, all of it, all together, all the time.
And this whole idea for us on Yoked is, like one theme that we keep hearing is integrate, and an integrated life. And for us, it really integrates a lot of things, all of those pieces. How do they all weave together into our life and business? And how do we not go crazy because of it? Well, and one thing, that kind of led us to this is this past week at our church, we went to the Business Leaders Breakfast, which was super cool. It was this thing that they're doing. Shout out Red Rocks Church. We love you. And they invited us all in. Any business leaders, they invited us in to just kind of start this conversation of how do we, in the corporate world, integrate faith and work, and how do we lead a business in our business faith-centered, and, just the conversation around that. And it really got us thinking. It was really good. And it just led us here.
Well, and it's a conversation that we've actually been having for a long time. So years ago, we got introduced to the Denver Institute for Faith and Work, or DIFW, great organization, nonprofit here in Denver that does fellowship programs and workshops and puts on conferences and all kind of support surrounding this idea. But even if you go further back, one of the first books that introduced this topic was Garden City.
So good.
By John Mark Comer. And so we read that or listened to it together, and we're like, whoa, how can we do this better? Like integrate all of the things and not live this parceled life, but really live an integrated life where like the kids know what we do.
Right.
And it's okay to talk about work at date night while also keeping it fresh.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even if that's all you get out of this podcast is I'm going to go read the book Garden City. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It truly is. And it's not like a business book.
No.
It's not at all. But for us, our lens, it is. It's theology. But our lens, it really helped us integrate that idea.
Yes. Yep.
All right, well, let's dive in.
Okay.
We have some questions that I think will be helpful to talk through and discuss and answer. And it'd be fun to kind of see where it goes.
I love it.
All right. So number 1, what is the biggest challenge we face in balancing business and faith? And how did we overcome it? So that's kind of broad. I definitely have some ideas around some stories of things, but I'm curious what you think.
I mean, I will say our industry in general has a reputation for not being filled with grace, for being a greedy industry.
Right.
You talk about like some of the worst reputations are developers, right? Everyone's like, they're just greed, money hungry.
So, and realtors. I mean, in general, like they're not like the most trusted, what is it? Car salesmen at the bottom, realtors, and then like attorneys.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I've been 2 of those.
But truly, like, you're stepping into an industry where it's already hard
It
to
is.
overcome some of that. And so I think just in the beginning, like facing it, knowing it, like this is going to be something that we're going to have to deal with. Like this industry can be filled with all industries, but has a reputation of being filled with low integrity professionals. And so knowing that you're going to come across them in all of your business dealings and knowing that you've got odds stacked against you when you walk into a sales appointment is just, I think, an important frame of mind to go into it with is industry perception.
Yeah, no, so true, and especially in our industry. And I mean, religion and faith is kind of a hot topic right now in our culture, as far as integrating it into our world, and especially in the corporate world. And so it's an interesting idea. But I mean, I feel like as a Christian, we're called to lead, and we're called to lead as Christians. And
Yeah.
so, do we go out and are we the most, you know, as I'm from Oklahoma, so Bible thumping realtors out there? No, but it's our foundation of who
Yep.
we are. And so, it always has been a big thing. And for us, we are big advocates and believers in Jesus is light, and light doesn't need sound to radiate.
Yeah.
And so, at least for me, like that is such, obviously sound is important, meaning speaking and kindness in your words, but also like your actions and what you do. And so one story that I can think of, again, this is real estate lens specifically.
Yes.
Early
I know
on,
what you're going to talk about.
well, and there's multiple, but just general, this is not realtor lens. This is just real estate investment lens. But in general, being a landlord. Being a landlord as a Christian is amazing, and it can be very difficult, especially like or starting out. We're what 25 when we first started out, and you know, you want to have grace and mercy, and you lead with that. And sometimes, not all people by any means, but some people could sniff that out really well.
Yeah.
And take advantage of it. And so that when it's the take advantage of it piece, that's the hard part as a Christian, because you want to trust and have faith and believe somebody at their word, while also protecting what you've been working on
And your investment.
and your investment, and protect the gifts that God's given you. And so it is this unique piece as a landlord. And so there's been multiple times, and usually it's around a confrontation. I remember one tenant that we had in particular at our fourplex early on. The fourplex we learned so much on. We learned, I mean, even from the beginning when we bought it, I mean, those people, they knew the system so well. They knew the game.
Yep.
They knew the game
Better than us, for
way
sure.
better than us. They were on like the 400 level, and we were, intro to real estate. And man, they took us to the cleaners and, went through this whole eviction process, which they knew as well. And it was just kind of one thing after another. But on that same property, we had fixed it up. And we'll call him Bill. That was not his name. Mr. Bill, young guy with his young wife. And man, everything inside of me and you, our gut said, do not rent to this guy.
Yes.
Because he had a laundry list of things, like, I mean, didn't pass the background, didn't pass this. And we have a platform that runs you through as a tenant. And it was like, red flag, don't rent to him. But he had such a good story. And like, he's like, I know I've made mess ups, but I'm turning my life around.
And can you have grace?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It's like, oh.
And so we were like,
okay.
Yes.
And what happened? Tell them.
And he destroyed that thing. He was there for like 8 months.
Literally just a hot minute in landlord terms. I mean, 8 months is not.
Maybe it was 1 year. Maybe it was 1 year term. But I mean, things like kicked every door in. And we had just updated it.
Yeah.
His turnover cost us like $7,000 of repairs. And it was just disgusting. New carpet, new paint. It's like, what? What are you doing?
An industry with lots of oil.
Oh, that's right.
I can't remember if it was
restaurant.
Was it? So he'd come in with his shoes and the oil stains. Like you can't get those out. Brand new carpet.
I remember the smell too, the greasy smell.
Next level.
But I mean, I remember thinking at the time, it's like, gosh, this is so hard, because I want to live the way of Jesus, and everything inside of me says no. Like, God, it was hard.
Yeah. I also And for the audience, and one of our guiding principles with this, like parenting, marriage, business, life, is for sure like more is caught than taught. And that's what you said at the beginning. And that is, if anybody need new parents need advice, it is to remember that more is caught than taught, because your toddler, your baby, they're going to remember everything you do way more than what you say. And it's the same thing in business. Like, you can't sit here and say, I operate with high integrity, and then not, when you've been given that choice to do it, actually do it. People see right through that. And so when you take a principle like that and you can integrate it across parenting, business, marriage, relationships, I mean, it truly becomes like a guiding principle for your life or your family.
So true. What other challenges have we faced that you can think of? Specifically around faith. And I mean, obviously for us, it is real estate business, but
Yeah.
where it's been difficult.
I mean, I think early on, one of the challenges that we faced was not wanting to disclose that we were doing real estate.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like, in a moment of sheer honesty,
Well, specifically around me at the church.
working at a church. Yeah. And I think that we had a misconception of the way that we would be seen if we were successful investors.
Yeah, that's so true. It wasn't really at the church, like on staff.
No, I
Staff didn't
wouldn't say
care
that. No.
because they like knew
They're
us.
some of our biggest champions.
Right. It was more like, and I think it was just us. Like it was
totally
me.
was.
It was me putting
It was
this on my.
Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. But this whole idea of like, and it is in church culture a little bit. I think it's gotten better, but this idea of like, you work at a church, you should be poor. No one would say
Right?
that, but people think it.
Or I would say in the entire nonprofit sector. People are
Yeah.
like, oh, you work for a nonprofit. Like,
You should give all your money back.
yeah.
Like
Why are you going on a nice vacation?
yeah, exactly. Why did you go buy this? Why'd you go buy a boat or whatever?
Yeah.
It's just this interesting, and I do understand it. It's like a little bit. I understand the very high level. The church, my salary came from the church, and people give to the church.
Mm-hmm. So you need to steward it.
So you need, so you need to steward it, aka you need to be poor.
Which also invites people in to judge you and your financial decisions.
Right. And I mean, we were
challenging.
25, and so I think that there's just some growing up that was needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
that's so true.
also I think, God does not. There are gifts that are given, and it's about stewarding those in a way that grows them to grow his kingdom, whether that's like in a monetary way or in a, way in which you take a sabbatical really well or something like that. Like, there's lots of gifts that can be given.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about more recent, like our realtor lane, because I have a couple thoughts on that as well. Like how, not necessarily like a challenge and how we overcame it, but just like bridging that gap a little bit of faith and work, because there are rules that we as realtors, we can and cannot do, right? Or say,
Sure.
depending on, the person or the house, the seller, buyer. It's all about fair housing,
Yeah, protected classes.
Exactly. And so I can't be like, hey, I'm only going to sell this house to a Christian. Like that.
No, you cannot
do that. Some sellers like to do that. They want to. And so it is interesting, like as a, realtor, again, realtor lens and lane, like navigating those conversations with like strong Christian believers that are selling something, for example, and you're telling them, hey, we agree. We love the Lord. And that's one of the reasons maybe why we are connected. Maybe we're connected from the church or somehow. And in the same breath, you might want to take all your crosses down
off the wall.
Yeah.
Which is I always try to use the phrase, anything that's polarizing.
Yes.
So in the same way that, somebody who had a really poor experience with faith early on in their childhood is still working through that, that's like a total trigger for them to walk into a house and see a bunch of faith signs, which, Hobby Lobby for the win. I get it. But also, it also happens with sports.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine walking into a house filled with Sooner stuff? Would you buy it?
In my core, I would just immediately be repulsed and like I feel bad.
I know.
But I'm like, it's just my upbringing though, where I'm like, Sooners equal bad. And I hate that.
Know.
I mean, as an adult, it's changed for me, but I still have the initial visceral reaction.
Yeah.
And I recognize it. And this would like, would I actually? Of course not. But I do have that feeling.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes it is like this constant tailoring down with our clients or with investors, partners of like, yes, we are faith backed, but we are in an industry that doesn't care. So make sure that the lens in which you're looking through everything is always compliant and is one that like you can stand behind, but the industry doesn't care.
And on the flip side, like I vividly remember like meeting with Don and Lynette. You know, two people. Don, I know him really well. He's a strong Christian believer, and Lynette is as well. And so we're walking through a house, looking at it, and I could just feel a little stress. And that was maybe like the inner like 10-year pastor of me coming out. But we're walking outside on the street, walking away, and we just stop, and I'm like, hey, let's pray right now. Let's just pray because it's just stressful, and I know it's stressful. I can feel it, and you are coming to me to help guide this experience.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, it is give and take, but it is, Christian first and all these other things second, but I'm not exclusively either one.
Yeah. And it's like that. There's lots of clients you wouldn't pray with.
Absolutely. No way. I'm like,
They'd be like, what?
they know that who I am
Faith
and what I
guides
believe.
us.
And,
Yeah, but you're not.
but I'm not going to force it on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
a balance.
It is a balance. It's interesting. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Okay, this is a good one. All right, for you and me in our marriage, how do we handle business disagreements? Whenever I'm right and you're wrong,
yeah.
How do we handle that?
I mean, honestly, though, because I peeked at your show notes ahead of time, we don't have a lot.
We don't.
Which I will say to the audience, like, it's not to say we're perfect. We certainly aren't. But I will say, after 15 years of working together, I mean, 16 years, we met working when we were dating.
17.
Almost 17 years. 17 years later, I can say that we've smoothed out a lot of the bumps.
Absolutely.
And so I almost want to answer the question like as us 10 years ago, when we did have lots of disagreements. But I also want to say to the audience, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And if you find yourself in a situation working with your spouse where you do have a lot of disagreements, in any sector of your marriage, your life, your parenting together, how to deal with family conflict, just know that like over time you learn each other better and you're just constantly working towards that space of being better together.
And I think you just got really good at saying yes to me.
I almost never say.
I know that's everyone that knows you is like, that's not true. But it's interesting thinking about disagreements, this is conversations around business, faith, and family. I remember early on, right when we first got married, we had disagreement on church.
Oh, we did.
And what it looks like, like different church backgrounds. And at first it was like, we were both like shut down. It was like, we're just not going to do it. And we weren't living in an area where there's a lot of churches to choose from, but it did take finding the right church. And it was like, and we knew it was like, wow, this is it. We found one that we both feel, comfortable in. And I mean, it's amazing. Like that was a long time ago.
Yeah. I think about
true.
too some of the some intro advice that we got, marriage advice, which then we've tried to pass along to couples getting married now.
Oh, this advice is so good.
I can't remember. Was it from Gary? I forget.
Well, actually, we didn't have the advice when we got married. In counseling at one point, Gary told us this.
Okay. So Gary Brigman. Ooh. He said that when you become married, you become a team. And that if one person on the team loses, you both lose. And so if you're in an argument and you're saying, I'm right, you're wrong, the other person's wrong. Well, if you're on a team, you're both wrong every time. And so changing your lens of looking at it, and this is in business, parenting, marriage, from you're right or I'm right, you're wrong, to how can we both be right if we really are on a team together. That perspective was a big shift for us. And that was a decade ago, at least.
And we definitely like instilled those same ideas with our kids.
Oh yeah.
In their disagreement. And then I think about, business now. Mm-hmm. And, we run our own business and we have multiple businesses.
Yes.
It's not like I have a job and I do this on the side. We both do this full time. And I think a lot of it has just come with growth and trust, but you have your lanes and I have mine. And I've learned that more, like you knew it going in. I've definitely learned it. We've talked about that a little bit, and so like we don't disagree a lot. We don't have a lot of things to disagree about. I mean, a good example is our flip that we're doing right now.
Yes.
we had a conversation this morning about the closets. And so we have this big flip that we're doing. It's beautiful. It's a luxury flip. And the primary bedroom has these two big walk-in closets. And originally the plan was to outfit them, fully custom closet. And it was like, well, we pivoted from that because, and you were right. I believe you're right. You said, like, we're not going to force someone's personalization because somebody might want to come in and redo it. Maybe they have 1,000 pairs of shoes. And
Totally.
So at first it was, okay, let's just scratch that idea, do a normal closet. And then you wanted to just leave it blank.
Yeah. I'm like, just think about
a blank
canvas that the buyer walks into and goes, look, I could do anything.
And the GC and me and I myself were both like, no way.
I know. And you're convicted.
Yeah, I was convicted. I was like, I agree in not doing the custom thing because it might be for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But we need at least a closet rod to show it's a closet. I mean, it's a goofy disagreement, but it is real. And it's like,
and we went back and forth for weeks.
We did, really. But in general, like, you have your lane, I have mine. And if there is something that we don't agree on, we talk about it.
And we get a trump card.
And usually the talk is a walk.
Yeah. Yes. You need to be doing something.
Yeah. Our most productive conversations around brainstorming around whatever it is usually coincided with a walk. Yeah. Being outside.
Yeah, I would agree. All right. Wrap us up.
Let's do it. All right. Let's see. Which one do you want to do?
I would just bring us home.
Okay. I like this one. What advice would we give to other Christian couples wanting to go into business together?
That is a great question.
I know, because there's a lot of them out there, and it's like starting out. Like, what would you do? What would you tell them?
Do you already have your answer?
I have some ideas. I've talked about them a little bit, but I'd say some things we got from the Business Leaders Breakfast as far as practical things, and this is as a leader, but I think if you are starting a business with your spouse, you guys are leading the business, and so number one is prayer.
Yes,
you pray about it. Pray about the business. Pray together. We know so many couples that don't actually do that, but actually go earnestly to the Lord and pray about it.
Yep.
Seek wise counsel, seeking counsel from someone else. And honestly, some of that counsel can come from just reading the Bible.
Yeah.
And so all that wrapped up into intentional time to think about what you're doing together.
I would agree.
And so, don't do it flippantly.
Yes.
Do it, but think about it. And if you're going to do this, create some business. And we are a faith-centered, non-Christian business where it's not a Christian entity, but it's run by Christians. Mm-hmm. And so what does that look like? How is it going to be different? And those are a lot of things to think about, and they matter.
I think too, with the seeking wise counsel, always, and we talk about this a lot with, real estate endeavors and lending and everything. Are you seeking advice from somebody who's further ahead than you? So you're not don't go ask your mom if your mom has never run a business, never been in a partnership, never been in your industry, because she can still be incredible at giving great advice and loving you well. She wants what's best for you. So, when you're talking about who do you go to for counsel, somebody who's ahead of you, who knows what they're doing, but also somebody who genuinely wants the best for you. Mom if she doesn't know both sides of that, it's great to go chat with her about it, but just be measuring the advice that you're being given and where it's coming from.
Yep. So true. So where would somebody find that advice or those people? Because we tried, it was hard at one point to we need some Christian entrepreneurship mentors.
Right.
We've had that conversation and that thought, and it's not the easiest thing.
No.
I think it just takes intentionality.
Yes. If you are actually going out looking for that, you would be surprised that it's more available than you think. Obviously, all kinds of community groups and life groups at your church,
Start one at your church.
Start one there, truly. What better way to do it? But also asking people if they're not the right person because they're not in your industry or they've never started a business, asking them who they know.
Yep.
They don't have to be the solution. They just have to know what maybe the solution is.
Yep, absolutely. No, I love that. All right, last question.
Okay.
For today, knowing what we just talked about.
Yes.
What are you yoked to?
am yoked to journaling. Truly, like the power of being able to go back and look through journals and pages of prayers that were answered, questions that were answered, frustrations that were felt, and to be on the other side of them. Like there's so many times that God tells us, like, you do not need to understand. You just need to have faith, right? Faith is confidence in what we hope for. Hebrews 11:1. And so if all you do is write down, like journal, like this sucked, this was great, this is not going well, what do I do? Here are my dreams. To go back and be able to look at those just brings this like refresh of your heart because of his faithfulness and constant reminding of yourself of that faithfulness in all those areas. I think right now I'm like, I look back at those journal entries every morning right now.
It's fun to go back and read them.
Yeah. And there were lots of times that I'm like, Travis is so good at visualizing. I wish I was better. For now, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon.
My journals are always like a cry to the Lord. They turn into like prayers.
I know.
They're like, and I did this. I'm proud of myself for this. And Jesus, help me with this.
And I'm weeping.
But it's so true. But then you go back and look at it, and it is like it's fun to see those answered prayers.
Yeah.
You know,
what are you yoked to?
I like that. I'm going to steal that because it's so real. All right, fine. I'll be yoked to being plugged into a local community church.
I love that. Oh, I could jump on that bandwagon too.
Yeah, you don't need to be there every single time, but having a commitment. I mean, our word of the year, commit. Yes. Having a commitment to be fed. And, a lot of people say, well, I don't need church. I just listen to music. And I do too. I love that. But it is this intentional hour and a half. That's it. A week or every 2 weeks that is distraction free in a group of believers, with worship and a message and, with this heart posture of I'm here to be fed.
And it's knowing what your faith needs in a different season. Like you and I are different. I need someone to level me up theologically. I'm part of a women's group that does that. Like they ask things of me. I mean, they're way smarter than me. Like it's incredible to be challenged every single week. Like,
yeah, you do need it.
And I need that. I need somebody like, I need to read thick, like theological books and have my mind blown. Whereas that builds my faith, and your faith is so much more natural, reaching. And so knowing what you need.
Yeah, that's so good.
I think it's a good one. So.
I love it. Well, as always, people can reach out to you on Instagram at the Ingrid Hall, and I am at the Travis Hall on all the socials. Be sure to click the like button, subscribe, and follow along as we drop a new episode every single week.
Yeah.
And until then, have a great one. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Yoked Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it.
And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow along as we drop a new episode each week.